Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to talk about something really cool in machine learning called clustering. So what is it? Well, it's all about teaching computers to find these hidden patterns, these natural groups in a pile of data. And the amazing part is they do it completely on their own. Okay, so think about this. Let's say you're a business and you have this just mountain of customer data. How do you even begin to make sense of it all? Or maybe you're a scientist with tons of patient info. How in the world do you find these little pockets, these natural groups hidden deep inside that data? Especially when you don't even know what you're looking for in the first place. Well, that's where clustering comes in. It's what we call an unsupervised learning technique. And that word unsupervised is super important. It means we don't give the machine any hints or answers beforehand. We literally just hand it the data and say, go figure it out, find the hidden structure. And then it just gets to work, grouping similar things together and separating them from everything else. Pretty cool, right? All right, so here's what we've got on tap for today. First, we're going to clear up a really common point of confusion. Then we'll dive into a couple of key techniques, and to wrap it all up, we'll look at how clustering is actually changing our world in some pretty surprising ways. Okay, first things first. To really wrap your head around clustering, you got to understand what it isn't. You see, it gets confused all the time with its close cousin, classification. But honestly, they work in completely different ways. So this table really lays it all out. The biggest difference? Clustering is unsupervised. You give it data with no labels, and it discovers the patterns from scratch. Classification, on the other hand, is supervised. You have to feed it labeled data first so it can learn, okay, this is what a cat looks like, this is what a dog looks like. Then it can predict labels for new stuff it's never seen before. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine you have a giant, mixed-up bag of Lego bricks. Clustering is like dumping them on the floor and sorting them by color and shape, without any instructions. You're figuring out the groups as you go. Classification, that's like having pre-labeled bins that say wheels, windows, and bricks, and you're just sorting the pieces into the right bins. See the difference? One is discovery, the other is sorting. All right, so now that we've got that cleared up, let's get into the fun part. How does this stuff actually work? You know, clustering isn't just one single method. It's more like a whole toolkit, a family of different approaches, and each one has its own special skills. So here are the big players. You've got things like partitioning, hierarchical, density-based. They all want to group data, but they go about it in totally different ways. Some, slice the data up like a pie. Others build this kind of family tree showing how everything is connected. And some are like heat-seeking missiles, just hunting for the most crowded, dense spots in your data. Okay, let's zoom in on one of these. We're going to talk about the big one, the one everybody learns about first, the absolute workhorse of clustering. I'm talking about k-means. So that k in k-means, it's the most important part. It stands for the number of clusters you want to find. And here's the catch. You, the human, have to tell the algorithm that number right at the start. So you have to say, hey, find me 3 clusters or find me 5 clusters. Now this gives you some control, but it also creates a pretty big problem, as you're about to find out. The process itself is actually pretty straightforward. First, you pick your k, right? Let's say k is 3. The algorithm then just plops down 3 random center points, we call them centroids, right into your data. Then, every single data point looks around and attaches itself to whichever centroid is closest. Step 3, the centroids themselves move to the new center of the groups they just formed. And this little dance, it just keeps repeating. Assign, move, until the groups stop changing and everything finally settles down. But this brings us back to that huge problem. The million-dollar question, how do you know what k should be? I mean, in the real world, you usually have no clue if there are 2 natural groups or 10, and if you pick the wrong k, you can get really misleading results. This is, without a doubt, the biggest criticism of k-means. So what if you just don't want to have to pick k? What if you want the algorithm to figure out the number of clusters for you? Well, good news. That's where a totally different approach comes into play. It's called dbScan, and it's built for exactly this kind of messy, real-world situation. See, k-means is great when your clusters are nice, neat little circular blobs. But what happens when your data looks more like a banana or a crescent moon? And what do you do with those random little dots, the outliers, that don't seem to belong to any group? K-means struggles with that. But dbScan, this is where it shines. Instead of forcing you to pick a number, dbScan works differently. It looks for areas where the data points are all packed together really tightly, regions of high density. That's actually what the db in its name stands for, density-based. Because it does this, it can find clusters of pretty much any weird shape you can imagine. And maybe most importantly, it can look at a point that's all by itself and say, you know what? You don't belong to any group. You're noise. Okay, so how does it work? DBCGAN labels every single point as one of three things. First up, you have a core point. The best way to think of this is someone in the absolute middle of a crowded party. They're surrounded by people, lots of neighbors close by. These core points are the heart of a cluster. Next, there's the border point. Sticking with our party analogy, this is someone who's kind of standing on the edge of the dance floor. They're close enough to a core point, they can see the action, but they aren't surrounded themselves. They're still part of the cluster, just hanging out on the fringe. And last, we have the noise point. This person isn't even at the party. They're outside, down the street somewhere. They're an outlier. And by being able to officially label these points as noise and set them aside, DBSCAN does something amazing. It makes sure these random points don't mess up or distort the real shape of the clusters. It's so clever. Okay, so that's a lot of theory, right? But what's the payoff? Where does this stuff actually show up? Let's talk about how these powerful ideas are being used out in the real world, like right now. And honestly, the impact is huge. Think about medicine. Researchers are using clustering to sift through thousands of tissue samples. And by doing that, they're finding brand new subtypes of diseases like cancer, things that were completely invisible to the human eye before. Or take marketing. Companies are clustering their customers based on buying habits, which lets them create these super targeted, really effective campaigns instead of just blasting everyone with the same ad. So when you boil it all down, that's the magic of clustering. It's a tool for pure discovery. It lets us take this gigantic, messy, unlabeled pile of data and just ask a really simple but really profound question. What's hiding in here? It's how we find the signal in all the noise. And that kind of leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? As we get better at teaching machines to find these hidden groups in our data, I mean, data about everything from our own DNA to the way our whole society behaves, what new things are we about to learn? Not just about the world, but about ourselves.